Good morning and welcome to Radio Tiny House. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's a beautiful day.
Yes.
And we don't get too many days like this in late December. Today's December 29th, Tuesday morning. We're at it again.
Yes, we are.
I love doing this.
We survived Christmas.
We did survive Christmas. That was a lot of fun. Christmas although technically we say this every week, we're not in a tiny house. We're in a small shed house for us. It can get very crowded.
Yeah, it can get crowded, but you didn't introduce yourself or me.
Oh, I'm Barry Smith.
I'm Beth Smith.
You should know that by now, if you're watching us.
Or maybe this is your first time.
If you're listening for the first time, I'm Barry Smith.
And I'm Beth.
Should we start again? Or no?
No.
Let's just go on. Let's just plow through. That's what we do here at Radio Tiny House. We try to make this as much fun as possible and to be more like a radio program than a podcast that
right.
We're in.
Hence the name.
We are an NPR podcast.
No.
We don't do that.
Try not to be that.
We even drink coffee on the air.
Yes, we do. And we have some.
We do indeed. So, Christmas. We survived Christmas.
We did.
We got rid of all of those Amazon boxes. Oh my gosh.
Yes, and we had we got a really fun gift, which is why we're wearing our scarves today.
Yes,
plaid scarves.
We're these are not our Scottish clan colors or tartan.
But for those of you that watch the video, you'll be able to see them, obviously.
Yes. But it's quite a nice scarf, and it's very warm right now.
And Barry's is red plaid, and mine is, of course, pink plaid.
Right.
And purple.
But one of our daughters gifted us with...
maybe it was both. Did they
It
go
may have been
together?
both. I don't know.
I forgot.
With a square foot of land each in Scotland, and so we are now officially Lord Robert and Lady Beth.
Exactly, and no, you can't put a tiny house on one square
Well, I think
foot
maybe
of land.
we should go do a Lego tiny house on
great.
it
and
video that.
So that gives us an excuse to go to Scotland when we can start traveling again, and then we'll put a Lego tiny house on top of it and take a picture.
So we can visit our own square foot of land.
Yes.
I hope they're somewhat adjacent.
But we can use the title. I read about a guy who said he was using his title, and they were treated very differently on the airplane than they normally do. So he decided to use his title to travel.
I don't know that works these days, but it might. I don't know.
We've never been one before.
I've never been a lord or a lady. I don't even think I've been a lord of leaping.
You might have been
in a Christmas play or anything like that. So we're coming up on New Year's.
Yeah.
I hope everybody's got plans for a safe New Year.
And by the way, the old Irish tradition of leaving the door open at midnight to let all the bad juju out of 2020.
Right.
I think we all need to participate in that.
We're planning on doing that, and
we're cleansing.
That's a tradition.
Maybe some sage to be added to the mix.
Yes, we can add Native American sage. What do they call that?
Purging or
I don't know.
Fumigating.
Yeah. Our daughter does it. Both our daughters actually do it.
Yeah.
But I love that Irish tradition of opening the door, letting the old year out, and letting the new year in. This year we may have to open the door quickly and then close it again quickly so we can trap the good new year before it goes, I know, I'm out of here. So Happy New Year. We can officially say now we'll see you next year for our first podcast.
Of 2021.
Wow.
Oh, yay.
Amazing.
I'm getting hot. I'm taking off this thing.
Well, hopefully for our viewers, hopefully that's all you'll take off.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not in Scotland. It's warmer than that here.
If we fade to black, she may have removed something else. But
yeah.
So
you never know.
Today we're going to talk about, on the agenda, we're going to talk about another reason for going sheddy or tiny. We're going to talk about something that's huge in the news right now and a growing trend. And then we've got a couple of really interesting news stories, I think, that people, I hope you'll find interesting. I found them kind of interesting and a little bit expensive, but we'll talk about that too. So one of the top reasons for going sheddy, we talk about it every week just because it's a subject that people always want to know,
why the heck did you do that?
Why did you do that? Why did you go tiny? Why did you build a shed? And people are always asking in our groups on Facebook or even in emails, why did we do this? And then we try to help them find their reason for going shetty. And most people have more than one.
Yeah.
So this one today is easy. It's money.
Yeah, that's a big motivator.
Yeah, money's a big motivator.
Particularly in 2020 when everybody's on the move, people are moving out of cities, and because for one reason or another, but often that's a money motivator.
Right.
And people have lost their jobs and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of reasons that people are really focusing on money right now.
Right. And building building any kind of house is not, it could be inexpensive to build a shed house, but it's not necessarily cheap. You can spend a lot of money on your shed house or your tiny home. I mean, I've read stories of people spending $200,000 on tiny homes,
which flabbergasted me.
But a shed house is basically a stick-built house that then you can put that is bare. I mean, you can do anything you want to the inside. So Scott and his wife put marble countertops in, and I mean they were in Louisiana, and we did a Facebook Live with them that sadly didn't go very well because the internet connection. But in our Facebook group, he's put several videos in there, and he's just done an amazing job. Scott was a builder. Right.
They got the drag and drop shed that we've discussed in here before. But they had some financial reasons for doing it, and now they live in this beautiful small home that's about the size of what we call our shop-us. But they will probably build something bigger at some point, but they seem very happy in what they're doing. So it's a huge cost saving for them. The challenging for us, or when you do some of these things, we talked a little bit about rent to own, is just that there can be quite a bit of upfront money to get it done. You can save a lot of money. Like you can chop up pallets if that's what you need to do. Go to restores and get cabinets or whatever. So there's, people ask how much it costs, and it's so hard to say because what I spent is not what you will spend. Well,
and these days it doesn't really matter. And that's a question people ask us all the time. And we always have to, whenever we give an answer, we have to say, we did ours 3 years ago. And what we paid is going to be is going to be significantly less than what you're going to pay today for the same thing.
Because of lumber costs.
Lumber costs are up. Labor costs are up.
Well, and I think I heard this, and I need to ask. I've got several Tuff Shed folks in my Facebook group, so I just need to reach out to them. But I heard that Tuff Shed, the people that we used, their shed business is up 10 times.
Right.
Not 10%, 10 times. If you walk into a Home Depot, you can kind of feel it because there's always somebody there doing projects. And we've talked about this before. We couldn't get the lumber for our fence because they didn't have it. And so lumber has gone crazy. But also, I don't know how many people are actually going to work in building during COVID.
Right.
That may be something that's, getting labor may be a challenge. So anyway, that was our main motivation, was to build something that we could afford, that we could have paid off, that we wouldn't have to worry about, finances hanging over our head. And many people do it for that. We talked last week about rent to own to help cut down some of those initial costs, but that can be, expensive.
Right.
But anyway, money is I think the top one. And of course you do have other outgo, land and wells and septics and things like that. So it can't be something, you can't do it if you have no resources.
Right.
But it can save money in the long term.
Right. Unless you know somebody that's got some property that has that infrastructure already built, or if you live in an area where you can put, which is going to be our next topic, an ADU in the backyard, then those costs can be significantly reduced because you don't have to pay for the land, you don't have to pay for the well or the septic.
Right.
Well can be very expensive. I mean,
unless you have Barry Smith, the world's best water dowser guy who can find water.
I am a dowser, but I've seen Mr.
Only one experience, our well. But
I've seen Mr. Blanding Builds His Dream House or whatever that movie's called, and they went what? How many feet did they have to go for their well? It's hilarious.
Cary Grant movie.
So the costs are upfront costs could be fairly big. But overall, right, you're not financing $250,000
for the rest of your
30
life.
years. I mean,
right.
this is an expenditure that you can get in, pay your upfront costs, whatever that may be for infrastructure. And then if you've got enough cash to pay for your house or the drag and drop shed, or even rent a drag and drop shed and build if the company will let you do that, because some of them will and some of them won't.
Right, and some of your cities will, and
check
counties
that out.
But some will and some won't let you
do
that.
Right. But money is a huge motivator. That's why we do so many things. We go to work. That's why we have the kind of cars we have, or we are in the business that we're in, because we all enjoy making money. I mean,
we enjoy
it's
the
results. Keeping it that we
right.
that we really need to work on.
We enjoy the results of making money,
right. But when you have, like we have space here, we don't need to have 4,000 square feet to be happy in. We have multiple buildings on our property. We've talked to several people that are building sheds, that are building a family compound. But if you've got 4 kids, why not build, depending on their ages, of course, why not, you could build a small mom and dad suite out of a drag and drop shed, and you could build 2 or 3 or 4 other kid suites for still less than what you get into most houses these days.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a more expensive way per square foot to build, but it's easy to add on, and then everybody kind of has their space. So it's just something that, a lot of people are looking at and doing. It's a very popular trend. We should do a podcast on exploded houses.
We should.
That'd be fun. Because there's many ways to do it, but you have to think about it. The best way to do it is to think about it ahead and have a plan.
Right.
Instead of just, doing it.
Instead of building, just building one and then go, that'd look good over there.
And right.
Because that can look kind of nasty.
Forgotten or whatever. All right. So
anyway, money is a huge reason to do that. Just like we talked about land. We've talked about, last week we talked about family commune. Not
right.
Yeah, but it's so there again 1,001 different reasons to do it. You may have a different money reason than somebody else has a money reason to do it, but that's a primary motivator for building tiny and for building sheddy.
Yeah. Cool.
So cool about money. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is this seems to be exploding in California and a couple of other states. And it's the topic of ADUs, or accessory. I keep wanting to say auxiliary. Accessory dwelling units.
Right. So I, on our way up to the podcast, because, in my Facebook group, on Facebook, I do workshops for the people that are interested. And we've done Get It Done in 2021. That was my first workshop. And then in January, I'm going to do one on land. That's the first big hurdle, is to figure out where the heck you can do this. And it's just a big place to start. And I recommend you own your land, not rent your land, because that just becomes a rent trap again.
Right.
And there's lots of reasons that you can't put the kinds of shed buildings or tiny houses, however you approach it. It could be built on site. It could be a drag and drop. It could be a tiny house on wheels. There's lots of places you can't do that.
Right.
So it's an uphill battle to try to find where you can build them. But accessory dwelling units have been around for some period of time, and basically they are something in somebody's backyard. Now, because of the COVID trend, and people thinking, gosh, I don't think I would ever want my mom and dad to go to a nursing home, which is the terminology we use. They're really more technically different names than that. But we don't want our mom and dad to go to assisted living. We don't want, because of COVID and putting them. And we've struggled with my mom. My brother, thank goodness, is able to stay with her because he was traveling the world, and then he had to come home for COVID. So that's kept her safe. Barry's parents live in a big
retirement
community, and that you can move through as you continue to age. Thank goodness they have the resources for that, but a lot of people don't, and
Right.
we didn't see them for a long time. I've only seen my mom once during this out in her garage, and weren't able to see your parents for months.
Yeah, my folks were on lockdown for 77 days, I think.
Right, and now they're letting people go in, and we did see them because we're very careful for a variety of reasons. For some health reasons, we're very careful, and we almost don't go anywhere right now. But I think people are really questioning that. Let's put all the people past 60, 70, 80, whatever the number is, in a group together, because it can be really dangerous.
Right.
And we don't know that COVID's going to go away, or something new will come. So I think people are really questioning that. So they're thinking about putting people in accessory dwelling units. And maybe in your community, you have the ability to do that, and you didn't even know it. Now, what an accessory dwelling unit is, it's usually smaller than the house that's there.
Okay.
It usually fits in character with the area, right? There's often some, they don't want a log cabin in a place of subdivision, let's say. Many subdivisions, by the way, wouldn't let you have an accessory dwelling. That's just part of the subdivision rules. But if you live in a place that sort of those marginal or maybe older communities, you might be able to do that. And I actually talked with the county where my mom lives. She lives kind of not in a subdivision, but just like on a road. And they have had an accessory dwelling unit clause in their county code, right, for some period of time. So Atlanta, we talked about this briefly last week. Atlanta has just added accessory dwelling units back in. There was a period of time, I'm sure, before they started doing all this zoning and planning, that they had the ability to put a garage apartment or something in the back. Then they kind of outlawed that. Now they're bringing it back.
A frog.
A frog. When we moved to South Carolina, everybody kept talking about frogs. I'm like, what the heck is a frog? And that's a family room over garage. Yeah. I didn't know what a frog was. But anyway, an ADU. So if you're thinking about some version of a tiny home, or if you're thinking about some place for mom, you can look into having an ADU. Also, people now are using ADUs, accessory dwelling units, for Airbnbs.
Yep.
Their pool house, that kind of thing. So I'm nibbling on the thought of having a workshop in February about accessory dwelling units, because this is something that's so important. So I just thought of it, or realized the importance of it when we were kind of preparing for this, but it's something that could really make a difference in, your family's life. I just have he's moving my microphone. Because I back away from it because my voice is so.
Her voice carries.
Carries.
When we used to sing.
He played drums and I sang.
We used to, and we recorded an album, and we would go in the studio, and we'd have to back her way off because of
my voice.
Her voice.
Yeah.
But I will say your voice has mellowed over the years, so it doesn't quite. She used to send almost every microphone into feedback. I mean, it was incredible.
Yeah.
But
I just tried to back away from the microphone, and he's fussing at me. Anyway, so ADUs, a huge trend. Maybe we'll call it something like, there's a thing called a place for mom, right?
Right.
Like an assisted living search place. So maybe we'll call it something like, I don't know, a place for grandma, or a place for dad, or I don't know. We'll call it something fun.
Why does dad always get left out of stuff like that?
Yeah, we don't care about dad. I guess that's true. Anyway, but ADUs. So if you're thinking about a place for mom, look into that in your community. Of course, if you want some additional help, just email Barry at Radio Tiny House, and we can certainly
get gmail.com.
I'm sorry, radiotinyhouse@gmail.com, and we can certainly get you in the right direction.
Yeah, it's
too important not to let you if you're thinking of this. It's too important not to let you kind of be able to direct you.
Or even if you've got a teenager or a kid that's living with you, that your kid that has gone to college, and they kind of want to have their own space, but they you
get them out of your basement, put them in your backyard.
Get them out of the basement and put them in an ADU in your backyard. That way they have their own space. It can be however they want it to be. For guys, it would probably look like a normal dorm room with clothes everywhere and stuff like that. But
But then you don't have that in your house. By the way, if you're living in a city or county that has ADU code, you probably can't just throw a drop and drag shed in the back.
Right.
You probably are going to have to do something with a real foundation and real things in it, just to kind of let you know that.
Right, but you can still buy a shed where you can put it on a real foundation, whether it's a a concrete foundation or a concrete block or something like that. So,
maybe. I mean, you don't know.
Well, we did.
And we made it to code, but that doesn't necessarily mean they would allow it. They're just, every place has different codes.
Right, exactly.
You just have to find out.
And that's the challenge, because
nothing is consistent.
Nothing is consistent. State to state's not consistent. City to city within a state is not consistent. So it can be interesting to.
There are websites though. You
build
can do
houses.
A lot of research.
Yes.
Okay. Onward and forward.
Onward and forward. All right. So speaking of kind of ADUs, although they're not, there may be PLDUs, parking lot units.
I don't know.
The city of Redondo Beach, California. I've been to Redondo Beach. It's a wonderful place in the summer. Is joined a list of cities that are using 8x8. They call them pallet sheds because they ship flat and they're very easy to put up. But they're using these 8x8 pallet homes for homeless people. And they're looking at the idea of also, there are a lot of elderly people that live in California and that move to California specifically because of the weather. They're looking at also doing things like that for elderly populations to get them to transition from their home to living by themselves without their partner, or to, if they don't have to be in a nursing home, if they can still take care of themselves, and then move on. But the big push right now is homeless people. And the article talked about there aren't a whole lot of homeless people in Redondo Beach. There are 200 homeless people that they know of.
Well, when they start building, here's the tricky part. When they start building them pallet homes, guess what will happen?
Come.
They will have more.
Yeah.
If you build it, they will come. And that's the real challenge with trying to solve the homeless problem, is how do you keep it from continuing to replicate? But,
right. Well, you can't, communities have tried to keep homeless people out for years, and it's impossible to do.
Right.
And building homes for them will attract more there. But we have homeless people all over the country, no matter what. Right. So why not give them a safe place to be?
Right. I read a really sad story last night. I was reading it to Barry on a Facebook group that I was in, and some couple, their house burned down, but because they had 2 dogs, one which was a pit bull or Rottweiler, I think it was a Rottweiler, they couldn't find a place to rent. They ended up being homeless because they didn't want to get rid of their puppy. Now I might have been a little more practical, and I may have done something with a puppy. I don't know. It's hard to know. But anyway, they ended up being homeless and they could never find a place to be. And she was shocked by how people treated them, even though he had work. Anyway, they finally, long saga, but they finally ended up building their own shed house and feel so much more secure by not having a rental.
Right.
Right? Because unfortunately, they didn't have renter's insurance. Anyway, it was a long, sad tale, but they now finally feel secure by having their own little tiny piece of land and their own little tiny shed house, so they don't have that insecurity. But they lived a period of time homeless.
Right.
And that was really
well. The interesting thing about homelessness these days is that it used to be, people who were, what was the word we used to, when they were, when they hobo, when they travel by train.
Yeah, hobos.
They're people that went and did odd jobs. They didn't have a real job. They often just took off on their own because they had, whatever reasons they were doing that. And it was their choice to have that kind of lifestyle. And these days, homelessness can be anybody from, the drug addicts that we see on many city streets, to people that are working in $100,000 a year jobs
can't afford the $600,000
California,
entry
exactly.
point of the house.
They
market.
live in their motorhome, they live in their station wagon, but they still have a job.
Yeah, well, that's why so many people. I mean, the great thing about California right now is that if you live in some sort of marginal housing, like an RV, they are letting people park everywhere.
Right.
Right. But the bad thing about it is they are letting people park everywhere, and there are abandoned motorhomes, and there are tents and everything. And of course, it's just really difficult to manage all of that. So anyway, I don't want to get into a homeless.
No. We're just no.
Okay, who's getting into the tiny house business?
Beth reads the thing,
the
bullet point. So IKEA, of all people, the Swedish meatball people. Well, I guess they're known for furniture too.
They've been noodling on this. Get my little joke there.
I did, yes.
They've been noodling on this for a while. This is not new news, but maybe they're actually starting to actualize the houses. They're cool. The one I saw, it's cool looking. It's black and with a kind of a natural interior.
Right.
Somebody in the comment below the IKEA article, it basically looks like a container home.
Right.
Flat, square. But somebody said, can you imagine all the little Allen wrenches they're going to send you to put that thing together? And the instructions with a little man.
And the little people, yes.
And the IKEA instructions.
I've had a hard enough time sometimes putting IKEA furniture together.
Right. Putting together an IKEA tiny house might be really challenging.
I'm assuming that they'll have contractors, we
put together an IKEA kitchen. I don't know. It may all come flat packed.
We did. Yes.
You may have to have people with little tiny Allen wrenches
get your house
together.
Flat packed. You can take it home on a trailer today.
Right.
So I mean that's it's smart. I think of them to recognize that there's something that they can.
The challenge is where. Well, back to the whole where are you going to put it?
Right.
There are trailer parks in most states that have become less than appealing. Because the trailers are getting old, and the whole notion of trailer parks was this, the whole concept of trailer trash and whatever. Now everybody's realizing that wasn't such a bad life to live inexpensively, but the trailer parks are really getting run down and never really were done with any idea of urban planning. So it'll be interesting to see where you're going to put IKEA tiny houses. There are tiny house neighborhoods that are trying to start every day.
Right.
It's just challenging to actually make it happen. Now, Florida, we talked about this before. Florida's easier because most places in Florida approve tiny houses on wheels. But they are requiring certain certifications and whatever, and I just don't know. We don't know anything about how that's going to apply yet.
Right.
But the big problem is where.
Well, but for IKEA, the smart thing is that there's a need for it to help with homeless populations, whether they're whatever.
For that.
Oh, I bet you cities will buy these and put them up.
I think they're probably going to be more. But I mean, they probably come with all the storage that, like we've talked about this when we went to IKEA. All the storage and everything built in, so you just walk in with your clothes.
But the other thing that they can do in the market is they can meet the desire for them, because people who want to have a second home could go to IKEA and just buy an IKEA tiny home. If you want to have it be your primary residence, you could buy 2 or 3 and have an exploded house. Made by IKEA. It's kind of weird to think about a house made by IKEA, but I mean, we've had furniture over the years that has lasted years.
Yeah, I also am in an Italy group, a renovating Italy group, because my dream is to have a villa in Italy, one of my many house dreams. But anyway, this person said they moved into a villa in Italy and all the antiques had been taken away and they had been all been replaced by IKEA furniture. And so she was then going back and trying to get Italian antiques to put in her 500-year-old villa or whatever. So it's not just here that IKEA has taken over. It's everywhere. But anyway, I think that's exciting. And the great thing about it is once IKEA or somebody like that starts building quality, that was what happened in the mobile home business. It became very inexpensive building. They tried to keep them light, right? So they could build them big.
Right.
And then they were not very well put together. Like instead of 1x4 or 2x4s, they were building them like 1x3s or something small. So, everything had to be different. but it was also flimsy and falling apart. And
Right.
anyway, there was lots of reasons that it didn't work very well. So they got a bad reputation, but hopefully IKEA is not doing that. I'd be curious to actually see one, peek underneath, try to figure out how it's built.
Well, I think we may have to
take a road trip.
Take a road trip to Sweden. And
I wasn't thinking Sweden, but maybe somewhere.
Well, we may wait until spring, spring thaw. Take a road trip in a camera.
There you go.
And go to IKEA.
Okay, we're at 30 minutes.
So, well, that's short for us. Lately.
I do put this up on YouTube for the video part. So I do the video editing and Barry does the audio editing because he's the audio guy. And oh my gosh, it is so, gets so difficult for me to upload them when they're long.
Well,
so
yeah,
30 minutes.
And again, we've talked about rural internet. Just check it. If you're buying in a rural location, buying land in a rural location to put a tiny house or a shed home on, check your internet.
Well, we checked the cellular data. That's what we thought was important.
Yes.
And by the way, we have our new 5G phone, and we're recording on it now for our video, and I think it looks pretty good.
It does.
And so
I think I like it better than the. Although I look like I need some sun.
Yeah, that's okay. But now we have 5G. We can use that to upload our videos. But I've eaten up all the data this month, so he's fussing at me. In my efforts to upload things onto YouTube.
I'm not fussing at you, but I did fuss at the kids the other day.
We're using all the data.
Like, oh my gosh.
And we're on unlimited data, but they throttle you back if you go too far.
Yes, they do.
You get your hands slapped.
Which is, if you have unlimited data, it should be truly unlimited data.
Unlimited.
So anyway, next week, coming up, well, not next week, but coming up in January, you've got a workshop on
land. How to find land to put your tiny house on.
I like the land at Disney World at Epcot.
Yeah, the land.
Yes.
And we'll I'll next week, because I'll probably put it like mid-January. I usually do these workshops, by the way, on Saturday because most people work, and so I usually do them on Saturday. But next week I'll have the date and everything set up so we can do the workshop on land.